You are now listening to Comp Corner, brought to you by the law offices of Bradford and Barthel.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Comp Corner. Once again, it's your favorite defense attorney, Nasser F. Adil. Please email your podcast questions to Comp Corner. Our email address is in the show notes below, as it always is. Later in today's episode, I will answer a recently submitted question about PDAs. No, not public displays of affection, but instead permanent disability advances, from friend of the show and claims examiner Jack. On today's episode, we are joined by Mr. Scott Rountree. Scott is a litigation manager at ICW Group. We discuss Scott's extensive experience in workers' compensation, including Scott's background in claims and as a frontline attorney before becoming a litigation manager. We had fun talking about challenges as well as emerging trends in workers' compensation today. And it was also nice picking Scott's brain about his personal achievements, biggest influences in his personal journey, as well as one piece of advice that has stuck with Scott over the years. We will get to know Scott a little better as well later on in our 5 in 5 segment. Before we get to Scott, thank you to everyone for pointing out how wrong I was about my Super Bowl prediction from episode number 1. Now, in my infinite wisdom, or lack thereof, I picked the Kansas City Chiefs to three-peat. Happily, I was very wrong, and that is a reminder as to why I do not gamble for a living. Instead, I do whatever this is. But I am a diehard sports fan, in fact, a big fan of the San Francisco Giants, who are in first place at time of recording, and I'm also quite superstitious. Since I picked the Kansas City Chiefs and they lost, I'll go ahead and pick the Los Angeles Dodgers this season's 2025 World Series. Long live the sports reverse jinx. And speaking of the Los Angeles Dodgers, on to our guest. On today's episode, we are honored and pleased to have a personal friend, a colleague in comp, and really a sports rival and frenemy. He is the litigation manager at ICW Group, Mr. Scott Rountree.
How are you, Nas?
What's up, Scott? How the heck are you doing?
I am not too bad. This is looking forward to this. This should be a lot of fun.
A huge thank you very much for joining us on Comp Corner, Mr. Rountree. You know, I don't like to show off, but or jinx this really, but is this your first appearance on a workers' compensation related podcast?
This is the maiden voyage of my soon-to-be illustrious podcast guest career. So thank you very much.
The dual career, right? And I don't want to show off again, but is this your favorite workers' compensation related podcast?
Without saying, hands down.
Hands down. Nice. Now, for our listeners, I've had the privilege of knowing Scott for 20 plus years. And I got to be honest, at the time when I first got the pleasure of knowing Scott, I was extremely agitated by Scott. Now, Scott, who's your favorite baseball team?
The reigning world champion Los Angeles Dodgers.
All right, as I sigh deeply. Now, I am a diehard San Francisco Giants fan, and actually, when I first knew who you were working in the Tarzana office. Is that correct?
At B&B, yes.
Now, how I got acquainted with Scott was as a Giants fan in the playoffs back in 2003. For those of you baseball fans, my Giants lost in heartbreaking fashion. This is before our 3 world championships, but back in 2003, there was a heartbreaking JT Snow.
Got thrown out at the plate to end the DS against the Marlins. Yeah, your brother, Mike Zima, and I, we were in his office listening to it on the radio, and Zima, who is also a Dodger fan, we both raised our arms in exultation, and your poor brother just hung his head and walked away.
I think we're aging ourselves listening to baseball on the radio, but my jaw was just dropped for probably hours after that. But we were on an email chain that you were on, which we got introduced to each other, where Gosh, Scott was just berating me and my brother about that brutal loss. Does that ring a bell to you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does.
And I kept telling my brother, I'm like, are you sure the Scott Rountree guy is he cool? Is he really cool?
Well, either he lied and said I was, or he was honest and said I wasn't.
There we go. Now, luckily, we became coworkers, and the jokes really about each other's teams never stopped. But it has been great to get to know you over the years. And but it's funny how we first met, how some of that sports frenemy stuff kind of came about.
Absolutely, good stuff.
Now, Scott, for our listeners, please tell us what you do as a litigation manager.
Quick disclaimer: all of my opinions, comments, annoying statements are those of me and mine alone. They're not representative of ICW Group. So I oversee the litigation panel nationwide, meaning the attorneys that do work for us. I'm on the large loss committee. Those are the higher exposure, catastrophic type claims. There's an excellent group of hearing representatives and lien specialists that report to me, and we have a support person who's terrific. And I'm just kind of around for general legal questions, roundtabling files, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. And how long have you been a litigation manager, Scott?
That title, I guess, technically has been a year. I've been in this role for about 6, and then prior to that, I was handling files.
Now, Scott, you're kind of a triple threat in workers' compensation, and you probably have no idea what I'm referring to. So let me just get into that a little bit. Triple threat meaning you started your career in claims. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then you've also practiced comp as well as an attorney, frontline.
Yep.
And now you're a litigation manager, correct?
Yes.
See, you're kind of like the Deion Sanders of triple threat options in workers' comp. Would you agree with that?
I think finally I'm getting my due, Nas. I appreciate that.
Now, can you just tell us a little bit about your career journey as a whole?
I started at State Fund, in 1991 as an adjuster, and then I did tours at Fremont and Zenith as an examiner. I was a hearing rep at Fremont, and then when that Fremont started to have financial issues, I was laid off, and Bradford Barthel hired me as a hearing rep. Decided to go to law school at night, and became an attorney. Managed the Ventura office for a little while, and the opportunity here presented itself, and the rest is history.
Now, in my experience, I've found that those defense attorneys who have claims background experience tend to be super well-rounded because, they understand things like wages, calculations, how to comply with, and report to employers and brokers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I think there's a level of, I think empathy is an overused word at times, but I think it applies here. Just understanding what the day-to-day of an examiner is, rather than, just a faceless client that an attorney who didn't have that, that kind of experience.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little helpful just understanding what an examiner's job involves.
So as a litigation manager, how would you say that your experience in claims and as a frontline attorney has helped you kind of understand the day-to-day?
I hope I don't sound snobbish by saying this. I think I have a pretty good understanding of the adjuster's motivation, particularly to get the file closed, rather than work out and exhaust every potential legal avenue that might be available in a claim.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that's so important. I feel like, defense attorneys, when we communicate with claims and kind of understand, hey, we are a team, cases do need that synergy between claims and defense, right? If you don't have that, you really lose that aspect of communication and really that perspective. Once you're able to see, hey, look, the claims has this view because of this, right? I may have a different view as a defense attorney, but just understanding where claims is coming from, that really helps us kind of in our discovery process. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And how about the constant communication between attorneys and claims? Do you feel like that's something that needs to be done more often, less often, or kind of just as a whole? What do you think?
I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I think we've all become a little too reliant on email. I think going old school and reverting to phone calls uh, is probably a better way to establish a rapport, and
Yeah,
it's a way to get to know somebody. It's a different relationship on the telephone as opposed to just exchanging text on an email. So and I know attorneys struggle with the volume of email and text messages and whatnot, that as do claims adjusters. So technology is great, but like anything else, it poses challenges in navigating and staying timely on.
sure. And that personal element is so important to have. I feel like I think when you can have that connection with an adjuster or with even opposing counsel, right? Once you kind of get on the phone and say, "Look, hey, opposing counsel, let's talk turkey. Let's talk what's really going on." It really has that personal effect to things, which emails are great, but if once you don't have that contact, and you really lose touch with someone. And in this day and age when so much is remote, right? You can be living in Indonesia, you can be living in New York, Florida. That's fine. You can all practice comp, right? But at the same time, if you don't have that personal connection where you reach out, hey, let me text you, let me actually call you, let's get on a video call, you really don't get things done as fast as you really could. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, Scott, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities you see in workers' compensation currently?
Challenges. I think the fee schedule, the QME fee schedule that was
Hmm.
approved. I don't know. Was that 4 years ago? Um,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, that really inflated the cost of particularly supplemental reports.
Yeah.
I think that's driven litigation, and it incentivizes an applicant to try and get
Mm.
as many QME panels as possible. Because these things can easily go into the six figures,
Sure.
and it enables an applicant to leverage a claims administrator by that exposure. And then the whole panel system has been problematic for years. Getting replacement panels, and is there a special list in a particular area? So I think that's a challenge.
Yeah.
From the perch I sit at on the higher exposure claims, the I'm blanking. I think it's at Vigil, not Vigil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, help me, Nuss. It was
Penoyer versus Neff. Penoyer
yeah. There
versus
you go.
Neff.
Yeah, international shoot. Eliminated vocational experts from commenting on vocational apportionment.
Nunez.
No,
Nunez.
thank you, Nunez. Yeah, so I think
God
that's
bless Nunez, by the way. Yeah.
yes, yeah, that's a case us defendants like. I think that's enabled defendants to have a little more um, leverage in challenging opinions of voc experts.
Now, you brought up something that was really interesting. You talked about how the increased costs associated with panels. It's funny, right? The newer law that went into effect about 3 or 4 years ago about was actually designed by the legislature to have an increase in the quality of and the quantity of physicians getting into comp. And what do I mean? Well, when they allowed the QMEs to charge more per page of review, that was designed to incentivize doctors to get into comp, right? To get into the specialty. Have you seen that that's actually increased the quality of the physician?
Not necessarily.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
that for a weenie answer.
I agree.
I
I agree.
yeah, I don't know that it's had the desired effect of getting more physicians in, on the on panel lists. Maybe that's been the case. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
can't say that I've seen a qualitative improvement in the analysis in the medical reporting I've reviewed.
I agree. I don't think it's necessarily been an increase in the quality of the physician. But one thing that I have noticed, thankfully, is that you notice now that physicians are actually reading the actual file more, which now that they get paid per page, which is nice because they're doing their job. But when they're reading cover letters, you can spell out what's the issues at hand in the cover letter. And I feel like in turn, you have QMEs actually reviewing things like, hey, highlighted apportionment, highlighted return to full duty work status, highlighted deposition testimony. And I think that's really just been nice because it's actually allowed for us to have less supplementals, less cross-exes, because QMEs are doing their job up front rather than having a claims assistant who's, getting paid, $20 per hour to do their job for them and reviewing records. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We still see the doctors that say, "Oh, we didn't get the medical reports," even though they've been mailed 3 months before the exam.
Sheesh.
That's pretty frustrating. But that issue's as old as the hills.
Right. So, Scott, you're talking about how panels and kind of more panels has led to increased exposure. What do you mean by that?
Well, because a QME can cost, easily 10 to 20 grand on a case that isn't that complicated, all the injured worker has to do is say, well, I've got a back problem and I've got stomach upset and I'm stressed and, all these other sundry issues, and which enables, an applicant attorney to request more than one QME panel to address all of those body parts per medical specialty. And they can beat the defendant over the head with 50, 60, 70, so on and so forth, thousands of dollars in exposure by getting all those panels, where in the old days, prior to, I think it was April 2021, a QME report had cost, $2,000 to $3,000.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't, the other side didn't have the leverage with multiple panels like they do now.
Yeah, and it's funny because those are kind of two conflicting theories, right? Because post 1113, you're supposed to have less panels because you can't really have psych claims unless if there's an actual psych involvement. You can't just have compensable consequence anymore, right? But ironically, post 2021 or so, you're actually having a similar amount of panels. So there's some issues that I think the legislature and the higher ups have to kind of deal with in the upcoming days.
Have you ever had the pleasure of reading one or more of the hundreds of newsletter articles found in the B&B blog? If not, you are missing out on a tremendous tool. Every week, our attorneys demonstrate their special insights into the defense of workers' compensation matters. Individual articles are available on our B&B blog page at bradfordbarthel.com, where you can also sign up to automatically receive new articles and upcoming webinar information.
Now, Scott, what are some emerging trends or developments in workers' compensation that you find particularly interesting?
I think interesting, but not necessarily in a good way, is that the decisions coming out of San Francisco, in my humble opinion, seem to be very applicant favorable. And
huge surprise.
And some of the cases, it almost seems as if the board is telling the applicant's bar how to get, bigger awards. But giving the board its due, the analysis I've seen generally is excellent, which I wasn't always the case. Maybe some of that is because of the early case that put the board under the gun to issue their decisions timely. But anyway, so I think the analysis is very good and thorough, but can't say that I always agree with it.
Fair. Yeah. The analogy I kind of go back to and stick with me here is in sports, you have like the dopers, okay, or the Olympic athletes who tend to, who used to do steroids, right? They were always trying to get ahead of the testers, okay? And those who tested drugs would eventually catch on and say, hey, you're on steroids, you're disqualified. Now, it's a weird analogy, but I kind of think that's how it is in comp, where you have the applicants who tend to really push the limit, right? And you have defense attorneys who try and catch up, and defendants, carriers, TPAs, et cetera, who try to play catch up like the drug testers and say, hey, hold on, you can't do this, you can't do that. But it really is the case where you have the applicants, and unfortunately, sometimes the Supreme Court, who really gives them the kind of path for that new approach of of handling cases and handling law and kind of emerging trends, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to put it.
There. Now, Scott, obviously, you're familiar with California workers' comp, and you've had the distinct, unique kind of ability to handle and see comp throughout the state. Now, Northern California and Southern California, for those who are listening, you all know that even though we're all practicing the same state of law, there really is kind of different approaches we take in the different halves of the state. Would you agree?
Oh, 1,000%.
And how so? What are some of the distinctions that you see kind of handling comp as a litigation manager?
There seems to be a lot more AOE COE claims in Southern California than Northern California, and it seemed the demarcation line seems to be around Ventura County. Because when I practiced in Ventura County, I didn't really fight many AOE COE claims. It was more nature and extent, PD value earnings, things like that, and that seems to be pretty similar north of there. Whereas LA Basin, Riverside, Orange County, Long Beach, that kind of, and so on and so forth. Though that there just seems to be way more contested claims filed in those venues.
Fair. And we have the kind of the distinct honor of having over 100 attorneys in our firm. And I kind of just asked around the firm to see, hey, what are some common differences? And the two or three distinctions that the attorneys gave were, in Southern California, to your point, there's more cases overall. Would you agree?
Oh, in terms of filings? Yeah, that seems to be fair.
But the odd part is that there's less trials. Would you say that in Southern California than in Northern California, if you kind of looked at everything the same?
Yeah, totally.
Some of our attorneys have also said there's more nuisance settlements in Southern California. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
What I always tell the attorneys and myself is, if you're not using the deposition as an informal settlement conference, then you're really not trying to push the case towards closure. But have you seen that as well, kind of more settlements at depositions in Southern California?
That's a good question. It seems to be a mixed bag. And I always said settling a case at a deposition was, better than Christmas morning. I didn't have to sit through the testimony, and I didn't have to do the deposition summary, and my client's happy because we both get a closed file. But setting a deposition, there's always a timing element. And on the one hand, setting a deposition early in the litigation can be advantageous to shut the case down quickly. By contrast, if the other side isn't ready to settle or the claimant has too high of a demand, well, now we have to go forward with the deposition, and are we ready? So that's the tension. And a lot of times applicants' attorneys don't send somebody to the deposition who has authority or even wants to bother with it.
No, absolutely. I think settling a case as a deposition is kind of like a mixture of Santa visiting Christmas morning, mixed with the Easter bunny, mixed with Thanksgiving dinner, mixed with Halloween. It's like that beautiful synergy of everyone's happy, right? The applicant's happy, they get to walk away. The AA is happy because, they get their 15% sooner than later. God knows the claims examiner's super thrilled, and you get to be the bearer of good news. So you're right. It's nothing like settling a case at a deposition that really keeps everyone on the same page. Now, what are some common misconceptions about our line of work, Scott? What do you think those who aren't in workers' comp, what are some misconceptions they have about workers' comp industry as a whole?
Nas, it amazes me how often when I tell somebody that I'm in workers' comp, say, "Oh, so you deal with everybody committing fraud, right?" And while that it's certainly out there, it's a very small percentage of the claims that get filed, much less that we deal with. So I would have to say that is the biggest misperception. I think I don't know. I haven't looked at a CWCI report in a while, but it seems like the vast majority of claims that are filed are accepted, right? So, So that's another misconception, is insurance companies deny everything. That's not true either.
Right. It's funny because when I first tell people I do workers' comp, there's two obvious answers. One is, hey, you should be doing corporate law, which is like, well, thank you for your non-attorney advice. Maybe I'll take that in consideration and or not. And the second misconception is what you pointed out, right? Everyone thinks who's outside the field, they're like, oh yeah, everyone's committing fraud. Look, are there people committing fraud? Of course. I would say it's probably less than 1% to 2% of overall claims being filed. I mean, of course, you have people over exaggerating, and that's our job to limit nature and extent. But the vast majority of human beings and citizens of this state want to go back to work. They want to return to work. Our job is it's a benefit delivery system. So we want them to go back to work also, but it doesn't mean everyone's committing fraud. And if everyone was committing fraud, you have AAs who wouldn't be taking on those obviously fraudulent cases, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's another good point there, Nos. They've got a license to keep intact, and most of them are honest, ethical people. So that it's an interesting line of work that not many people understand.
As you know, here on Comp Corner, we appreciate communicating with the comp community. When your question gets read aloud during a Comp Corner episode, our client relations team at Bradford and Barthel will send over some swag and merchandise as a thank you for taking your time. Jack in claims asks, I received an order approving compromise and release back from the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board signed by the Workers' Compensation Judge, and now I'm issuing payment to the applicant. However, permanent disability advances have been ongoing since the draft of the compromise and release and signature by the applicant. Can I still take credit for permanent disability advances made through the date of the order approving compromise and release? Excellent question, Jack. The answer is yes. You can take credit for PDAs made through the date of the order approving compromise and release. In fact, page 7 of the compromise and release states applicant gets the balance less further permanent disability advances made after the date set forth above. Now, Jack, the pro tip here is really to state on the compromise and release pages 6 and 7 that indemnity benefits, including permanent disability advances, are subject to proof with jurisdiction reserved. That really keeps everyone on the same page as to ongoing benefits. And pro tip number 2 is to state that PDAs are ongoing. So if you have ongoing benefits, go ahead and state that on page 6 under the PDA section, and state that on page 7 under PDAs as well. Thank you, Jack, for your question. And now back to Scott. Now, Scott, what achievement are you most proud of in your career journey through the years and decades in workers' comp and just in life?
Well, I've been married forever and 3 good, successful kids. Career-wise, I think going to law school at night and, surviving that, still married, that was my wife's a hero for gutting that out. So yeah, that's sometimes I wonder if it was a smart decision, considering all the sacrifice that was involved. But hey, it is what it is. It was a decision that I made, and I think all in all, it was for the best. So I career-wise, I would have to put that at the top.
Yeah, she's the better half for a reason, right?
Absolutely, amen to that.
And that's what it takes. I mean, for you to kind of go through things. I mean, you were talking about you started law school when you were already working. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was at B&B at the time.
Yeah. So I mean, you've seen the teamwork that it really takes for you to kind of advance your journey, but it couldn't have been done without the support of your spouse and family along the way, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Thank you for that. Now, Scott, who or what's been your biggest influence on your career or personal journey?
Career-wise, I probably everybody we all know and love. That's the good old Tamina Ahmed. I forget what her title is now, but I know has a wide swath of responsibilities at B&B. But yeah, we worked together at Fremont, gosh, in the 90s. She'll kill me. She'll kill me for sharing that. And then when when the litigation department was closed at Fremont in 2001, she called and offered me a job. And, I thought I was going to be going back to being a claims examiner because I'd only been a hearing rep for a year. And then that afforded me the opportunity to keep doing the litigation side. And she encouraged me to go to law school. And, that she was a big influence in that, along with, friends, my wife. But she really got me to thinking about that, and there were just a lot of opportunities that presented itself because of my time at B&B and because of her influence and direction and mentorship.
And that's awesome. And for those of you who know or don't know, that's Tamina Ahmed. She's an equity partner with our firm, and she's also our client relations director. And she does a great job at the firm. And to make you feel maybe a little older than you probably want to feel, Scott, her daughter, Alina Ahmed, is actually in our Oakland office as an associate now, believe it or not.
I know, and she got married, and dang, it's crazy how fast the wheel's spinning.
Now, Scott, what's one piece of advice that really stuck with you over the years?
When I was offered to be a managing attorney, I was really intimidated by the opportunity because I was waiting for my moral character to be approved. So I hadn't even been licensed yet. Tamina was still running the office. Don't anybody report her to the state bar. But I was going to be an attorney in a matter of weeks, and so I was going to be supervising folks who'd been attorneys for decades, and I was thinking, who am I to manage these folks? And I was sharing that with my buddy Mike Zima, and he says to me, even Babe Ruth had a manager. So that was really helpful, putting things in perspective.
Even to your point, I mean, even Joe Montana's son had a coach, and that coach was not Joe Montana, believe it or not. So, I mean,
yeah. Everybody needs a leader. It's at a certain level, right?
100%. Now, Scott, if you weren't doing or working in workers' compensation, what would you be doing instead?
Probably working for the city of Los Angeles. I was
Nice.
kind of between insurance and taking a job with the city of LA, and my path went towards comp.
Here we are, right? I think my answer would be podcasting or sports broadcasting. So I think,
There you go.
And Scott, a common question we ask of our guests is, where do you think workers' compensation will be in the future? Let's take our time machine. In the year 2050, what are some changes you think will be brought forward in the workers' compensation community?
Wow, that is a great question.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott.
No, that's why you're the host, Nas. I think some tweaks to the panel system will have been made. Maybe a higher preponderance of evidence standard for added body parts, perhaps. But a lot of this, a lot of this too depends on the political makeup of the legislature. That would depend on demographic changes and things like that. I think that's a possibility. I think AI will be far more entrenched by then than it is now. Not to say that in claims departments will be run by Skynet, but or attorneys' offices for that matter. But I think that will be just everywhere and part of day-to-day practice. So I'm sure that would lead to some streamlining.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've asked that question to our guests, and it's funny because the cool answer really is that nobody knows. Duh, we can't predict the future. But one thing that everyone says that's similar is that it's definitely a changing dynamic, right? Workers' compensation is always evolving. Things are always changing, and that's kind of the fun part of what we do, right?
Yeah, totally. It is, and it isn't. I mean, it's exciting to deal with legislative changes. By the same token, it's really stressful. A lot of the laws aren't drafted very well.
Every time the law changes, I think everyone's a little scared. Then they realize, hey, if the law is changing, that means guess what? There's different types of claims being filed. There's more need for defense attorneys, adjusters, applicant attorneys, applicants, all the above, right?
Yeah, totally.
Now, Scott, here's the question that I really wanted to know, and it's really the purpose I wanted to intervene and really have you here for us, Scott. The question is, when will Southern California stop stealing Northern California's water? Go ahead.
Okay, you want to do this? Okay, all right, let's go.
Gloves off. Let's go.
Yeah, it's on. I love this. I'll give an analogy. My middle son said about all the people complaining about the Dodgers, signing Shohei and all this deferred money, and he said, you know what? That's what you get for bagging on us for the 2020 World Series. So the way I would relate that is, has anybody north of Fresno ever gone to Hetch Hetchy Valley in Yosemite? I think the answer is no. That was reportedly John Muir's favorite back in the day, as opposed to Yosemite Valley. And it was over his strenuous objections, it was dammed. And that's where Northern California gets its water. So, let's look in the mirror, you Northern California snob.
No, we didn't mean it. It got personal, and I know it's going to get like that when you ask such a heated question about water in the state. All right, it's time for America's favorite workers' compensation segment. It's time for 5 in 5. Now, here in 5 in 5, we have 5-ish questions in 5-ish minutes. Are you ready, Scott?
I'm ready-ish.
All right. So, Scott, which Friday Night Lights character would make a better workers' compensation attorney? Tim Riggins or Justin Street?
Wow, what a great question. I think it depends on the kind of case. I think Riggins is who I'd want if I want a scrappy guy who's willing to go to the mat. I think Street is the guy I'd want if I'm trying to negotiate a settlement.
It's solid. I think Tim Riggins is the guy you want. Just, hey, I'm just going to go AOE, COE trial. Let's just go forward. But maybe Street is more like, hey, let's just be more methodical. Let's talk about settlement and different options. Now, Scott, sometimes I like to give trick questions, and the real answer to that is actually Coach Taylor and Landry Clark. But I think your answer was solid nevertheless.
Okay. All right. Reasonable minds can differ.
Deep. Now, next, we got a controversial question, but let's not beat around the bush. What's your Mount Rushmore of candy bars?
Oh, please. Is this a serious question? The Uno bar, my man. There's nothing close.
Now, for our podcast listeners, there have been many who have been critical about my brother, who was our first podcast guest back in early February. He had the payday bar. The payday bar, really?
Seriously?
No joke. I mean, like peanuts and peanuts and peanuts?
What is he, 90?
Okay, but in my older brother's defense, it's not like Uno is really bought it, right? I looked up Uno. It's not even really found. I mean, can you find Uno in any relevant store these days?
Well, yeah, relevant being the operative word. They're usually located in an old style pharmacy, in my experience, or a novelty candy shop. They're hard to find, but they're amazing, especially frozen.
So basically, Ben Franklin type stores or Woolworths, is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm making the old guy jokes. A bit ironic.
That is deep. So, okay, we got Uno. What else is on the Mount Rushmore, Scott? What do you got for us?
I think Snickers has to be there.
Definitely.
Twix. No, not Twix. I'm sorry. Kit Kat. What have I had?
Hands down.
One more. $100,000 bar.
$100,000. Well done, Scott. Scott, I gotta be honest. I think you've taken the number one seed as far as our Mount Rushmore of candy bar answers. Well done, sir.
Excellent. My hard work has paid off.
Now, Scott, would you rather be a famous athlete or be a famous rock star?
Oh, athlete, hands down.
So let's dig a little deeper. Famous athlete, I agree. Which sport would you rather be a famous athlete in?
I think it'd be baseball.
Baseball. And why?
Longer career.
Mm,
I love football, but nobody's running at me full speed that weighs 280 pounds and is solid muscle.
yeah, right.
Uh, yeah, I, I think the career longevity availability is probably what would lead me towards that, and I just love the game.
No salary cap either, right?
Yeah, amen, brother.
Actually, on the next time we have you on, we're going to talk about the cheating Dodgers and how dare you have $1 billion payroll and just buy a World Series championship. Anyhow, let's get to that next time. Moving on.
Wow.
Moving on here. What's the better Costco food court option? Hot dog or cheese pizza?
Oh, if it's between cheese pizza and a hot dog, I'd say a hot dog.
All right, Scott. Well, what else is out there? What do you think? Other?
Well, I'd say I don't think they sell it anymore, but the Costco meat pizza was one of the
Oh yeah.
best things on earth. It was just meat. They didn't put it. They didn't mess around with vegetables or fruit. It's just meat, sausage, bacon. Excellent stuff for one's health. All protein. Good
Straight to
macros.
the straight to the point. Straight to the point. Now, Scott, who is a scarier 1980s movies character / horror villain? Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger?
I'd say Jason because Freddy Krueger was a caricature. But Jason, I could see
Yeah.
that happen.
Jason could exist. All he needed was a creepy hockey mask, and I think someone could come to your door, right?
Heck yeah, yeah. I mean, Edward Scissorhands is gonna slice me up into ribbons in my dreams. Come on, get out of here.
Other nominees for those before you start emailing Comp Corner. Other nominees, of course, are Michael Myers and really any Kiefer Sutherland character from the 1980s, including Lost Boys. What do you think?
Those are good choices.
Now, a bonus for you, Scott, since you did exceptional over the first 5. A bonus one here is, what's your all-time favorite list of Los Angeles athletes? And let me give you some time to think about it. What I mean by that is, for example, my favorite list of Bay Area legend athletes, in really no particular order, my favorite athletes in the Bay Area are Steph Curry, for obvious reasons, best point guard of all time. Sorry, Laker fans. Steph has passed up Magic Johnson. Joe Montana, the greatest quarterback of all time. Also,
He's
Jerry
okay.
Rice. Jerry Rice, the greatest hands down receiver of all time. And 4th place, Mr. Barry Lamar Bonds. Scott, you are a. Well, let's tell what are your favorite sports teams, Scott?
Dodgers, Lakers, Rams, UCLA. If we're talking college.
So, Scott, what's your favorite all-time list of Los Angeles or Southern California related athletes?
Now, do they have to play in Los Angeles, or can they be from Los Angeles?
Ooh, now this is the content that we need, Scott. How about what's Mr. Rountree's favorite list of all-time athletes? Go ahead.
Okay, that's Jackie Robinson.
Nice.
Let me see. Probably Davy Lopes. In the torture days of my youth, Vince Ferragamo and Magic.
Nice. Ooh, you gave us a nice little selection there, Scott. Well done. Scott, we can't thank you enough for joining us. You've been phenomenal. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the great work that you do at ICW as a litigation manager.
It was my pleasure, Nos. Thanks for the time. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you to Amir Riabi and Tammy Welty for producing today's Comp Corner episode. Please email Comp Corner with your questions. Our email address can be found in the show notes below. A huge thank you to Scott Rountree for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing you all next time on Comp Corner.